See, the reason it took me long to write this book, when I left my marriage, which I perceived it to be abusive and mentally abusive, was
Welcome to Dreams Made Possible podcast, where we share Life 101 lessons for a great life. I'm your host, Botaki Hlalele. I'm a life coach and a person on a mission to cultivate personal mastery and self-worth in others. In this podcast, we conversate with personal development specialists, leaders from different walks of life who have made an indelible mark on others, and ordinary folk who have beat the odds to be where they are. Before we dive deep into the conversation, please click on the link below and subscribe so that we can grow a community of dreamers. Welcome again, and let's welcome our guest. Our guest is Lerato Dube. She is a space scientist who has turned to become a life coach and a career coach. She is certified to facilitate the DeMartini Method. The DeMartini Method helps you to identify your values and to know your values. She is also the author of a book which is yet to be published in the month of March called Married to a Narcissist. In her own words, Lerato says, I help you to locate your superpower. Welcome, Lerato, to Dreams Made Possible podcast, and I hope you will assist us to locate our power. How are you feeling this morning?
I'm feeling excited. Good morning, Botaki, and good morning to your listeners and viewers.
Thank you so much. Our aim with this podcast really is to make sure that we help people to make a transformation in their lives. But I always say everything before you start it requires a foundation. We don't start by putting bricks and then after putting bricks, we dig below the bricks and then start to dig a foundation. I believe in the foundation. And the foundation for me starts with where we come from, our childhood. Who is Lerato?
Lerato is a happy person. I am born and bred in the Eastern Free State, grew up in Kwakwa, a beautiful mountainous place you should visit it. And grew up there with both my parents and my siblings, two sisters. And then from there I grew, learned from the community, learned from the world to be the person that I am.
Wow. Tell us, how was it growing up in your family? How many, maybe you can share with your parents, what were the good moments? What are those moments that pissed you off as well?
Well, it was actually a fantastic area to grow in. It was a former homeland, so it was called at the time, where most of the Basutos were gathered together. But Gorko was known as the hub of education. And if you look at the shape of Gorko itself, it's like right inside the mountains, and the mountains give us a circle. All the colleges were there. We had 5 educational colleges. We have so many high schools and boarding schools. And we had a university. And it was really a, good space to be at. Both my parents were teachers, and so you understand why I will start telling you about it being hub of education. And so the value that they instilled in us was in education. But they were also happy people. They loved doing a lot of things. One of those things was playing, because I learned that I need to play with my children, and they played a lot with us. Perhaps they had the skills as teachers, but mostly it was, what is it that you do to keep the child occupied, for them to train their mind to be able to do things for themselves.
Wow. So you say your parents were teachers. I am a son of a reverend. Of late, people say pastor's kid, PK. And one of the things that I had experienced growing up is the pressure that I got from the community. Just because I'm a son of a priest, that was my sin. And people would expect me to be straight and I should not be doing wrong things and stuff. Now, as a child of teachers, did you experience the same pressures? And if so, how did you deal with them?
Well, I wouldn't say so. In an area that we lived in, majority were teachers.
Okay.
So we were literally just a community of people of feeding into each other. So teachers, doctors, policemen, psychologists, all those professionals that had come up to, find their feet in Gwagwa itself. So normally you gravitate towards an urban kind of area where you start staying with people that speak the same language and do the same things. So literally that kind of like balanced things out, and the pressure was not there. But also the biggest pressure for you as an individual and a child is to achieve greater things that your parents want you to achieve. Yes. To be greater than them. And that was so undefined.
Okay. So now you say they were undefined. Probably, I guess, at some point you had to define for yourself what is the road that you want to chart for yourself. Walk us through that. How did that influence you, and how did you then craft the road that you wanted to follow?
Well, at the time that I was starting high school, Mandela was almost coming out of jail, and so there were a lot of riots, so I was taken into boarding school from a high school, and there the things that I gravitated towards were science subjects. One, I'm a very hyperactive person, and I don't want to sit long and listen to people talk for long periods. So being in a science kind of environment kind of like occupied me. The science laboratory occupies you, and the experiments and sums that you work with make you interact and engage with others. So that took away the boredom out of me, but also then therefore channeled me into a science industry. And that's how I ended up gravitating towards that.
Wow. Let's talk about the science industry. When I read your profile, it talks about a space scientist. And I started thinking about it as to what is a space scientist? Because to be honest, growing up, most of us, and I hope I'm speaking for other people, especially in South Africa for your Black community, we end up finishing school not even being sure what types of career to follow. Even to a day when you walk into the university, you start hearing maybe from those people appointed by universities to guide new students. So talk to us about this career, space scientist. How did you discover that?
Ooh la la. That was a beautiful journey of trial and error, and found myself in it. So when I started at university, I went for a BSc in physics and chemistry. Those were my majors. And I did that in University of the Free State in Kwakwa, now called University of the Free State. Back then it was what? University of the North, Kwakwa campus. Yes. Unikwa. Now, there I completed my physics degree. But on our last year of completing the physics degree, the government of South Africa had partnered with the government of France, and they were now taking over the facilities of space science in South Africa and converting that into peaceful use. So back in the days, during the days of apartheid, space was used to spy on our military, where their camps were at, and there were high technology satellites that were built to be able to have those capabilities. So when Mandela came out of jail and the new democratic country came in, one of the first things was South Africa to start using space for peaceful use. Now this partnership between the two countries of making these efforts of using space for peaceful use started a program where the government of South Africa wanted to train Black graduates from historically disadvantaged institutions of higher learning to come into the program and know more about it. And that's how I got recruited on my third year at University of Kwakwa at the time. So the young people that had been part of the program, they came to their old universities and some universities like ours that they haven't been to tell us about space and the opportunities that are there, what it's all about. And so that's when I told myself, you know what? I was not even sure what I'm going to do after I graduate. And here comes an opportunity. And that partnership was done with University of Stellenbosch. And so that's how I found myself going there and learning more about literally the engineering side of designing, constructing, and launching and operating a satellite. And therefore, that's how I found myself in the program.
Launching, designing, and operating a satellite.
Yes.
We'll get into that just now because I'm so fascinated about that. You know, some of us just see satellites there. We don't know what they actually do. But when I read about space scientists, I get to understand that you need to have strong mathematical skills, science, critical thinking, and communication skills. I guess that you did not make it into the class just by chance.
Well, yes. The people that were recruited into the program were mathematical scientists, computer scientists, physicists, such that you are able to understand, you already have the basics.
Okay.
Because remember, for us, we were not doing it from ground zero. We started introducing to the concept at postgraduate.
Okay.
Now you had to know that you also have the capability of reading and writing with comprehension and packaging a story and understanding, science basics.
Yes.
Just the scientific laws. Yeah. So literally, yes, it will be just a normal mathematics and physical science from high school, and then go into university that will provide you with that. Yeah.
So let's talk about the dialogue, what they call the day in the life of. Let's talk about the day in the life of a space scientist. You wake up, you get into the office. What happens actually? Just to demystify what your day looks like as a space scientist.
Okay. Because I didn't choose the field of being technical, because then there are two. There's one that continues to construct, but when I completed my studies, I became brave and wanted to talk more than I act.
Okay.
And so I joined government. And so I went into policy making. One, I had to learn other ways of understanding the law and understanding regulations in space. And also understanding that even within space itself, we have demarcations.
Okay.
And the same way that
it was zoning of some sort.
You can call it zoning. For example, I got very involved also in understanding electromagnetic frequencies and the frequency spectrum of things.
Okay.
So most telecommunication people are in that, but even with us as space scientists, we're there. Because when your satellite is orbiting on space, it's got its own space that it's orbiting on, so that there's no accidents,
traffic collisions and stuff.
So now you have to know, how do you design it?
Okay.
Now I went into the space where I now look at overall what the world is doing and where South Africa will be sitting and what our niche will become. So my learning experience, my day in space scientist that was now a policymaker was in collaborating with other countries, learning what they're doing, also redefining what I want as South Africa, and take that message and find partners that I can work with, and also show off the capabilities of South Africa. Already I was a product of that whole initiative, and now we knew that South Africa has the capabilities of building satellites. Now most of the time you are literally marketing it to other countries, to other partners, to other people, and also then coming back into the community to say this is what it can do for you. The whole intention was for every second citizen in South Africa to understand the benefits of space. But if they don't understand it, they should feel it. So now coming into this interview, I had to use my GPS to literally get me the space that I'm at.
Which is quite interesting, because I was going to ask you, what are some one or two benefits, so that at least we can have a better understanding. And you've already started with GPS.
With GPS.
And every time I think about it, I remember when I started firstly coming to Joburg, my GPS was the filling station. I would stand there, ask the guys the directions, and they would direct you right to your destination. But today we've got a GPS, which for me was so important, because even though I was a geography teacher at some point in my life, I still struggled with reading maps, because you had to go to CNA and buy a map and then put it on the bonnet of the car and follow the directions.
And stop in the middle of the road.
And stop in the middle of the road. Now the benefit is GPS. What is the other benefit that communities enjoy today, but they don't know? Like, I didn't know that it comes from this field.
Well, you do know. You go home, you switch on a television. And that television is a paid channel of things like your DStv. And for them to communicate with you with all those channels that are coming from all the way in the world where you don't know where that is,
Yes.
the transmission is also done through a satellite.
Wow.
Yes,
Okay.
the one that is orbiting at the pace of the Earth,
Yes,
positioned
yes.
such that you are able to get that message
Okay.
wherever you are.
Now you remind me of something, but it's topic for another day. I'm still wondering today why, when the weather changes or it rains, DStv cannot transmit, the pictures and stuff.
Now you see
Yes.
why. Because then when the weather changes, it's between that satellite and your clouds and what's happening in the atmosphere and you receiving it.
Oh, okay.
And that intervention of, your frequency that is coming through is, disturbing.
Yes. Okay, thank you for sharing with us. Now, the other part that I would just like to explore as part of the day in the life of a space scientist who is Lerato, walked into the government and is working. And you mentioned a very critical thing that the people who were chosen were from previously disadvantaged communities. And part of the broader definition of that is black people.
Yes.
Africans, coloreds, Indians. But then you also have a specific a cohort of this group, which are females. And on top of that, you add another complexity, a black female. How many of you were in the program? How many of you did you find at work? And how did you navigate the challenges, if there were any, in terms of the gender dynamics as a woman in this space scientist space?
Well, now that you're asking me, there's something fascinating when I look back.
Mm-hmm.
Is that at first you don't realize it.
Okay.
Right? And you go into a workspace and you see other colleagues and they're probably coming from support systems like your HR and the likes.
Yes.
And then now you go to your division and there's just few of you. Few women. And yes, I got used to being one of the few women.
Yes.
And sometimes the only woman. And therefore you eventually get in the space where you are no longer wanting to be aware of that. Unless if you can experience some level of prejudice.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, you are there to do what you need to do. You're there to negotiate, you get out with what you need to get out. And so you then driven by what your value is for the day. And yes, the challenges were there because I had to even read one of the books. I forgot the author, but I think the title is The Smart Girls Get the Corner Office.
Oh, okay.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And now I started to see how the dynamics are because sometimes when you are the only woman in the meeting, during tea break, when the guys go to their restrooms, you are not there, but the conversation can continue. When others go to smoke, you're not there if you're not a smoker. And the conversation continues. And
decisions are taken.
Voila. And now when you come back into the boardroom, it's like a unanimous decision that gets to happen. And now your responsibility is to question and follow up such that the stories are packed. Because at times you sit there and you're thinking, what am I not knowing? But on hindsight, also it happens because of the natural space that men have found themselves in and not being interrupted.
But Lerato, you're mentioning a very critical thing. Having been in corporate myself, you're saying you have to follow up and unpack. I guess that could be something that you become a nuisance to this man, if I'm right, to say you want them to unpack this decision. How did that go about? Did you experience any pushback if those moments where you decided to unpack them?
Most of the time, yes, you become a nuisance, you become sister boss, if I have to call it that, but not in a positive way, in a way that you literally become that person that when you come to a meeting, everybody knows that you are a nuisance. But now you also have to, as an individual, knowing your responsibility, and also that's when you're self-aware. When you are not aware, you go into play victim. When you are aware of what your responsibility is supposed to be, you don't play victim. You understand that they don't understand. And now you go and sell it to them in a way that they will understand. And sometimes asking is a way that we always encourage people to learn. Because when you ask, you take the power into someone's hands to unpack it for you. It might delay the meeting, but you also make sure that you highlight that it was never discussed, so it's not part of the minutes. Yes, because it's not minuted, so you don't know where it's coming from. So you will have to do it for also transparency. I guess that's the beauty of growing in a democracy.
Correct.
And getting to learn the rules as you grow into that into that system.
But what I learned is you can have the rules and what democracy has said, but at the end of the day, it takes courage for you as a woman to stand up and challenge the status quo.
Certainly, certainly. I guess let's take it back to high school. In high school, as much as there were girls in the science, in the physical science class and the mathematics class, I unfortunately was one of the shortest and the smallest.
Yeah.
So even at matric, I still wore clothes that the juniors were still wearing. I was as small as them. So I had learned to stand up and ask questions because I had felt that I was not seen. And so sometimes when you get to that position where you feel that you're not seen, by just virtue of people really not seeing you because they are not even aware they haven't included you, it's your moment to actually stand up and not shrink and become a victim.
So let me ask just the last question on this space scientist area that you had been in. So the government probably they wanted to influence the numbers, not only the numbers, but also to grow talent, especially from previously disadvantaged communities, but also females. Would we say when you decided to change course that you have maybe reneged on an agreement, if you like, with the government? Do you feel that you have dropped them?
No, I actually feel that I have empowered them.
Okay.
Because my purpose was aligned to theirs. To make sure that it still grows. And being part of that system for 16 years, we made sure that there are people that know about it. Even on your spare time, you go and motivate young people. On your spare time, you go into universities and tell them about the industry. Because you see, even in space science itself, you don't always have to be a scientist. We need lawyers that are going to be there. We need administrators. And like I told you about the demarcation and splitting the land that is on air, you actually need lawyers because there is something called space law. So you need the lawyers who would understand that space such that when you are going to be launching a satellite, you take in those people with you. You need the digital marketers now. Everything is happening, online. And you also need good speakers because you need someone that can package the story. So your marketing people are very necessary to come and understand what the industry is about and then take that message out. And yes, eventually we also need cinematographers, especially those that will turn it into cartoons, such that our young ones also become very excited coming into the industry. So eventually it has to be something that now when you say space science, people think of the American Space Agency. They are not thinking of the South African National Space Agency, which exists and is sitting in Pretoria. And now we wanted you to get to the point that you understand that we are players of this. So I would not say I renegated on them, but I would say actually today, I am also talking about what they are doing and their mission is doing. So yes, the more we have, the better we get to reach others. And look at it this way. It means that we had gotten to a level where I can be replaceable, which is something that we all desire. When you grow, you need others to grow with you. And if you decide to change direction or you are no longer on this earth, the work still continues. So there is lots of potential. There is also capabilities that have been built through the years. And yes, I'm confident that I did not doubt them.
Because that's a positive note to end on that subject. And you at home, especially a young person sitting at home, if you didn't know about space scientists and the benefits, but also the careers that you can explore within that area, I think Lerato has assisted us in unpacking that space. Lerato, now you one day just wake up and decide to say, hey, this space thing, I'm enough with it. I want to become a transformational speaker and a coach. Two different words just at face value. How did you come up to that decision?
Well, I don't think it was a decision. I had to give myself permission to be. Remember I told you who I was at high school, the things that fascinated me. And now I saw that within me, I'm more of a speaker, I'm more of a people's person. I'm a nurturer.
Yes.
I'm a guider. And I'm that person that you feel very comfortable coming to talk to. Now, that also was my role as a big sister in the workplace.
Yes.
I became a mentor to many others within the industry. But then I started realizing that it's actually not about the science. When a young person who's entering the workspace wants you to mentor them, they are not thinking about how do I get to where you are based on the qualification that you have. Chances are now you have the same qualifications, right, with this young person. But when they come in, they want you to guide them in how do I show up. And in how you show up is a different kind of science. Now, that has always been my interest, whether it's with my friends, whether it's with my cousins, my sisters. I had been that person that you can go to if you want help in unpacking what you're thinking. And so that's how I decided, maybe let me give this a chance. Because yes, on a daily basis, what occupied my time was speaking. And whether I was doing that through presentations, through coaching my team, through working with the team, that's what I enjoyed. Tea break, that's what I enjoyed. Lunch break, that's what I enjoyed. When I get home, that's what I enjoyed. Now I got to a space where I felt I actually want to do this full time, because you see, in government, there's a time where you're in senior management, you're not junior enough to be the person that's now telling the young people what space science is about. You are also not very senior enough to be talking to the cabinet or the executives. So you find that at that particular time, with the level that I was at, most of my work was now in a cubicle. And now as a speaker and a person that wants to go out and engage with others, that suffocated me.
But now that transition, you say you were in a full-time job.
Yes.
Getting into the coaching space, because I have traversed that road, but I don't know what your journey was. But what it meant for me is that you leave this safety net, the safe cocoon, and now you jump into this space where nothing is guaranteed. How long did you conversate with yourself to say, hey, I'm leaving this job? And the reason I'm asking that is maybe somebody who is sitting at home would like to understand what is the route that they need to take in order to change their career. What are some of the risks that they need to think about before they get into those spaces? And there are many other considerations probably, but just walk us through your journey. How did you come to that decision where you finally say, hey, I'm tired to have an employee number. I'm now going to pursue this thing of becoming a coach?
Okay, at first I contracted a coach because I wanted to grow in my career and I was feeling a bit frustrated and I wasn't sure what it is. So normally you would call a person that has got the tools, a coach. So while traveling this journey with my coach, one of the exercises she made me do was look at what it is that I'm doing daily that energizes me. And so I went and looked and I found that in the whole week, what I did was exactly that, speak and engage with people. And that energized me, whether it was during work context or not. And so I had thought about it before even my son was born. And
how old is your child?
9.
Okay.
Right? Before he was born. And I thought, okay, let me do this part-time. But you never do it on a formal basis. You just randomly do it. You get to a wedding, they don't have an MC, and automatically, because they know you're there and you're a friend, you become the MC. And you get to a funeral and nobody's speaking on behalf of friends. Lerato is there, you speak on behalf of friends. So slowly your talent is starting to show and used by others that know it, but it becomes something like breathing. You actually don't think it's something that you really love that much. And so in that process of working with a coach, I highlighted that I need to do this. But yes, the safety net was one of the things that created that fear to be enormous. But slowly, as my son was born, and I was like, okay, maybe let me do it while he's still very young. And of course I didn't do it. And now he was growing, and I was looking at him and I was thinking, what kind of world would I want him to have? And if I delay this any longer, would he learn what I want him to learn? But you see, sometimes when we think about our children, It's not about them.
Yes,
it's about us.
Yeah.
Because for me, it was, if this that I've learned really works, when will I actually know that it works if I don't leave? Because then when you are with your employer, they take most of your time. And if you are like me and never started, sometimes you have to push yourself out. It's like going through that parachute. You're on this airplane and you just have to fly to actually see whether you can open the parachute and to see how you can land and how you can do it, and then just do that over and over until you are comfortable. But that shift, when it came, I looked at he's growing, and by the time he's financially demanding, at least I should know whether this works for me or it doesn't. And so now he's 9, and I had given myself until he was 10. And so I've gotten used to it.
You're getting there.
Just
closer to 10.
Closer to it.
Okay. So, Lerato, you're speaking about the transition into coaching. And what I've learned about myself as well is that when you transition, you're always calculating. It's always about the risk that you take. It's always about being hooked to what you are used to. And sometimes you can end up in analysis paralysis. So maybe we need to take the viewer at home through this process of decision making, so that we also advise people in the right way, not just to say, hey, just jump, because this is your passion, this is what you can do.
Well, it's always nice to say just jump.
Yeah.
But you see, before you jump, and I'm going to give you a small analogy of one of my hobbies, of going bungee jumping. And normally when you go bungee jumping, you set a date.
Okay.
Like on this particular date, I'm going bungee jumping. And now you prepare towards it, and you pour petrol in your car, you take your car there, right? And they give you the rules, you sign the indemnity form, you already know that you've told everyone around you that I'm going bungee jumping. I don't know what's going to happen, but I feel it's going to be safe because I have seen Botaki has become a coach, so and so has done it. And so I believe I've got the strength to go and do it. And once you are up there, it's you and the air and the people that are there to help you. Because either way, wherever you go, there'll be people that are there to help you. You just need to look around. And then you jump. Then after you jump, eventually you get to the ground, and now the exhilarating feeling, you're starting to analyze it. But at the time you're jumping, you don't know what you expect. You only know what you hope to find. So it's the same thing when you want to leave your job, when you want to also change careers, even when you want to leave town. And we would not come from the same angle and the same level of bravery. Because, for example, for me, it was from the science student that wanted to explore what else is out there. So that curiosity never left me, and that level of bravery never left me to say, if there are others that have done it, I sure will be able to do it, right? But now you also look at yourself financially. Can you sustain yourself? It will give you some level of comfort. Not that it will always work out as you plan. Yes, unless if you're the kind of person that, you know, looks at things to the finer details, and now you don't allow the universe or God to give you, you know, experiences, and you want it to go that way. But if it's something in the future, you don't know how it's going to work out. But yes, also talk to your support structure, your basic support structure. We don't guarantee that it's going to be your ultimate support structure. But at least at the time that you're leaving, that will give you some sense of comfort for yourself. Right?
Lerato, I really like the metaphor that you used of bungee jumping and the fact that of building your tribe around when you take these decisions, because we don't walk alone. You know, these decisions affect other people, and I believe that nugget you put out to people will be so helpful towards them going forward. But let's get into coaching. When I check on YouTube, when I check Facebook, social media platforms, seemingly everyone is becoming a coach. Is this real or is it a fad?
Well, it's real. Look, coaching is a 800 billion US dollar industry. So some people want a slice of it. Some people are intentionally sent to be able to become coaches.
Yes.
And it will be lovely if every second person is a coach. We would realize our dreams.
Yeah.
And if you look at it, it's different coaches. We're not all doing one thing.
Yes.
So one way or the other, everybody needs a coach in any area of their life.
Okay.
Yes.
So having said that, just maybe make it easier for us to understand in your own words, what is coaching?
Coaching is to help someone reach their destiny by holding them accountable to what they promised, and also by sharing the tools that they can use to get to that next level.
Yeah. Okay. And how many people have you coached up to now? And what type of transitions have you witnessed from those engagements?
In the past 4 years, I would say a good 65 people. Transitions, dynamic, and also diverse.
Yes.
I'll give you an example with one career person that I had assisted, who was never manager and wanted to go into management. And now working with them to understand who they are, what their strengths are, and what may be perceived as weaknesses, because I don't look at it as weaknesses, but it's just things you don't prefer, right? You don't have them, you haven't built the muscle for them, so they become your weaknesses. And also design how you're going to show up. And now you also give them the tools to show up like that now. So they might not be managers, but they already manage a household. They already have their children reporting to them, their husbands or their wives, the helper or the gardener, relatives that they know that they are more senior towards them. And so how do you show up like that? And once she felt that she has accomplished that, literally when she got into her first job and had to have the team meeting, she was like, I felt like I naturally belonged there. And that was my purpose, to be there. And for me, that was the most beautiful thing to witness. Yes. And another person that I can give you an example of is a young person who was 21 and was not sure if the course that they're studying at university is actually what they want, but they've been influenced by their friends. So their parents decided, go and work with Lerato. And we actually found out that according to their values and what they're aligned to do, what else is it that they can do with a career? And by the end of that year, he had gotten distinctions at varsity. That's also another aha moment. So it depends where you're looking at it and how you're looking at it. And I also work in a community, a disadvantaged community just outside Johannesburg. And I work a lot with women that have been abused or are in abusive relationships. And now the transition of them starting to realize that they have not been focused in where they want to go. They've been focused in what is not going well. And once they start focusing on what is it that they want, realizing who they are, and taking the power to leave a toxic environment, that becomes very liberating for them to start doing things for themselves.
Okay. So when I look at your website, there are words emboldened in yellow. They say, I help people to locate their superpower. So I'm not sure what you're saying is it's exactly that, helping people to locate their superpower. Where is this superpower hiding for us to be able to now locate it?
Superpower is not hiding, but you are born into an environment where you've got boundaries. You've got rules and regulations. And if you continue like that, you make those rules and regulations rigid. Now, in me helping you locate your superpower, we forget that you're a woman. We forget you're a man. We forget that you're black. We forget you're young, etc. And we get to a point where I help you find what you want to do. Don't look at other people. You know it's been achieved. If it hasn't been achieved, you're going to be the first one. There's always a first. But you're now going to give yourself permission to do it. Then we understand that the environment outside might not be allowing because it hasn't yet learned to accommodate you. And now you're going to be aware of that and you're going to assert yourself and then take that superpower because that's who you are. You can't hide it forever.
Yes,
Otherwise, you're going to die with it, right?
Wow.
Now you take that superpower and just become. And that's how I help you actually crack the boundaries. So, for example, if you are a guy and you want to be a chef, and you come from an environment where most people that cook are women, you will then have to give yourself permission to show up with those women and start cooking. But perhaps because you went to chef school, when you come out, you're going to be looked at differently, because now your recipes will be different, your presentation will be different. Now this is how you show up into an environment that thinks that you are not supposed to be, and you change the narrative. And slowly we're starting to see that infiltration. Like the question you asked me, how was it being in a male-dominated industry? We know it as male-dominated, but it's because men have been there. But it doesn't mean it's supposed to exclude women.
Correct.
It's just that it hasn't been done. And once you find what it is that you want to do, then you give yourself permission to do it. Because I guess before the other person gives you permission, you have to give yourself permission. And then you start showing up like that. For a while, you're going to be very aware. And most of the time, you might want to draw back. But quickly, you will ease into it and become comfortable with who you are. The same way as me transiting into this particular career now. At first, I doubted myself. And then I started small. And then eventually, I was like, I love this. So it's no longer about what others are thinking, whether I've ditched my comfortable job, whether I'm no longer a scientist. I actually found how to become a scientist, even today in what I'm doing.
That's so awesome, Lerato, especially the whole issue of giving yourself permission. And we'll talk to it very, very shortly. I would like to take you back to August 2022. I think you went on social media and said, hey guys, join me on the 120 days challenge. And I looked at it and said, is this woman nuts? 120 days. That is basically 4 months of being focused and looking at something. But before we go into the actual 120 days, one of your videos, you're saying the first half of the year, you had already started your days challenge. And your focus was on writing your book that you took 4 years thinking to write. Now, maybe let's start there. You have shared with me outside this podcast that you'll be publishing the book in March. But I'm interested in, why did it take you so long, or is it even long? Why did it take you 4 years to write this book? And just give us the title of the book, because it's going to be released. Maybe you can just give us a highlight.
The name of my book is Are You Divorcing a Narcissist? How to Get Your Power Back. You see, the reason it took me long to write this book, when I left my marriage, which I perceived it to be abusive and mentally abusive, was that I was at a point where I wanted to tell the whole world what happened, right? But I felt it was not good timing because I hadn't unpacked it. I hadn't learned what is in it. And now when I went out to speak to women and some men that could relate, it was a common word that we use, but nobody wants to do anything about it now that we know. And now some of the advice that channeled or tried to guide me to stay, I felt that we couldn't have that conversation of why should I stay? And now that's the reason why I wanted to write it at first. And then, of course, the coach in me was like, but there's no story. You'll just be venting. And we know, once you become a coach, you know that negative news sell, but it's not about that for you to grow. So I wanted to see how actually the divorce or the marriage itself has become the most beautiful thing that has ever happened to my life. And so that's why it took me that long. So in the challenge of 120 days, it actually still took me long, because if you see it, the challenge was towards the end of the year, right? In my 120 days. And that brought in a lot of aha moments, because now I started working with a lot of women. And now in working with women and men, that have been through the same experience, I got to realize that actually these narcissists are here to coexist with us. And sometimes they are here to remind us who we are, because we never sit and ask ourselves that. And that's one of the most beautiful things that I got out of that experience. Yes, it was painful at the time that I did not see what I see now, right? And so when I work with you, going through that experience and still getting your power back, because the whole idea and the majority of the book focuses on how to get your power back. So it's not about the narcissist. It's about you. What is it that you're doing now that you found yourself here? And of course, the scientist in me grows up in that to show you that you've got the data. Now design what is it that you want as an outcome. That's your mathematical equation. Now use the tools, which is the equation, to actually get you to the desired answer. And that's how you get your power back. So it's not about the narcissist. It's about you.
So what I like out of what you're saying, you seem to be saying to me, even in that dark space, there's a beam of light that you need to capture and then take it from there so that you can reshape your life.
Yes.
But now for somebody sitting at home who does not understand a narcissist, I once reported to a person I believe was a narcissist. They was always gaslighting and the like. Just maybe demystify it for us. What is a narcissist? And maybe by giving us one or two examples of the narcissistic behaviors that you suffered under in your marriage at the time.
Okay. You see, because this is in English, there's a one word in Sesotho that you explain it to say a narcissist is motwahob.
Yeah. And the most cruel, let's put it basic, cruel person.
Cruel person. Yeah. But cruel in a way that they, not all of them inflict pain physically. And the manipulation could be, let me give you a simple example. That I used to experience. And then say you're going to an event, a wedding, a funeral, anything. And now you get ready with your partner and you say, so what are you going to wear? I think I'm going to wear this. And then once you're done wearing that, and then they say, are you going out with me looking like that? Now you don't know whether that is too beautiful, ugly, non-representative, but now you start to conclude because the question came up. It means you're not dressed according to...
you question yourself.
You question yourself. You start doubting yourself. And now when you want to change, it's like, no, I didn't say you should change. But I'm asking if you're going with me dressed like that. Now, that seed that they just planted for you to be uncertain and unsure, but also not to take it in a good light, already has dampened your mood. It doesn't matter whether you're going to keep that attire. For the whole day, you're already doubting yourself, right? Now, it also goes into conversations. And sometimes let's also take that into a workspace, like you felt that you're reporting to a narcissist. Most people that experience that at work, when I work with them, the first thing that I say when they think the boss is narcissistic, they like giving you orders that are not written down. And once you deliver on what they had asked for, then they can say, I didn't ask for that. So it's things like, I didn't say that. So I'm hungry. Okay, what would you like to eat? No, I would like to have some mince. Okay, I go prepare mince. Like, wasn't that chicken? And now you're thinking, dude, you said you want mince. No, I didn't say that. Now, sometimes that space of saying, I didn't say that, is so short that you're starting to think you're going nuts. You're starting to question yourself. And now, even in conversations that you've had with others, they can come back at home, and when you unpack it, they say, that person didn't say that. And now you start to want to write it down. So in a workspace, very easy. Boss Botaki gives me an instruction. I tell a person, go back to your desk and write them an email. As per our conversation on the corridor.
What we basically call cover your ass type of approach.
So that cover your ass type of thing is for you to have data. And unfortunately, most people want to use it at home. Because now this is where you say, but this, your WhatsApp said, and other partners want to record you because they know you're going to say, I didn't say that. So it's those subtle things of wanting to control you to be a person that you are not, while they loved you being the person that you are. You see, sometimes you come because you dress good, you look good, and sometimes you come because you are talkative, like me. And then all of a sudden, they say, when we are out in public, you dare say a word, pass it by me. So for a talkative person like me, I will be told that if I need to say anything next to family members or outside the house, I have to pass it by him first. Now that becomes a level of controlling where you don't know whether what they liked you doing, now that they don't like it, you also start to doubt yourself. Because remember, your significant other is your soundboard, is a person that you trust, and you're thinking they're there to also, cheer you up to be the best that you can become. But once you start to get a lot of criticism from them, you feel that you actually don't belong. And now the space that you've created that is a home is no longer feeling like a home. It feels like a prison. And so most people that want to also exit that, or they don't know how to survive it, then we work with them to try to show them how else life can be.
So when you look at the statistics from our government department, a lot of women become victims in marriage. But now the fact that I want to explore with you is the courage, because not many people have garnered that courage to go out of that space. What would you say to a person in that space, be women or men, but given the fact that most of the people who are at the end of the stick are women, but what would you say to them to make that decision and leave that type of arrangement?
It might not be safe to just leave, or sometimes it's not even safe to even announce. It also depends what kind of environment that you're in. So if it's very physical, we say run while he's not at home. Yes, because you don't want to say, Botaki, I'm leaving, I'm taking my bags, because you know how they're going to react, and that could put your life in danger. And sometimes that life is not just yours, it's also the children's life that are in danger. So if it's mentally manipulative, sometimes you also don't know how they're going to react. But because this is your person, this is a person that you've stayed with, those moments that they wanted to blip out. You also know that maybe let me have company. As I say, I'm leaving. Can I get my sister-in-law? Can I get my mother-in-law? Can I even get one of the cousin brothers? And that can say, you know what, I wanted you to be here because I wanted it to be a safe space. But I would say it's not everybody that decides to leave. But when you must leave, just leave. And run if you can, and run as far as you can. When you have children, make sure that it is regulated legally, because you might not be in a way that you can converse with that person and come to a conclusion on how you're going to co-parent. Because I guess, let's wait for the book to come out, but I guess one of the things that I also address is there's no co-parenting with a person that is manipulated. There's parallel parenting. So what happens on the left-hand side doesn't always result in what happens on the right-hand side. So it might not be similar. It might not be a mirror kind of life that the kids would live, but you as a person that is aware and conscious of what just happened, you should be there to hold space for the children and make sure that you are also the nurturing, not the overextending nurturing where you end up, making them sissies and being spoiled, not being able to do things for themselves, but be more open and empathetic. Because most children, like most of us, grew up not to be heard or seen. So sometimes it's where we actually design those habits of wanting to just shy back. And so as a parent, open up and make sure that you understand your children and you can be there for them emotionally, and certainly get help.
So the viewer at home, I would like to put Lerato on the spot because the book is not yet out. I guess that she will visit us on this podcast and share the ins and outs of the book, the juicy stuff and everything that we can learn that can impact our life going forward. Lerato, as we get closer to closing this conversation, I would just like to pick up on the 120 days. You started it in August of 2022. How many people did join the challenge, and what was your definition of victory once everything was said and done?
Definition of victory for me was that muscle that you wanted to build in that particular area of your life. So others went to lose weight because it was on social media. So others give you feedback, others do it privately in inbox, others they actually give you feedback on your posts. But where those that probably, let's say about 3% of those that continued to give feedback, they actually eventually started to see things happen for them. Remember, I said choose one area of your life, but we know as a human being, all areas of your life, at least try to choose one goal that you're doing. So yes, even this year we started. We are on day 6 of 300. Wow. So now I didn't say 120.
The standard has gone up.
The standard has gone up. You see, for you to actually create a habit, it's not 21 days. 120 days, the mind is starting to give up, and the body is starting to give in, such that you are able to achieve that. Let's look at it from a weight loss perspective, which is a simple example. When you first start going to the gym, and if you don't change your food intake, you'll just be a firm, bulky person that hasn't lost any weight, and your body fat could still be high. And now you would soon learn that you're going to change your food intake, right? But if you go to the gym and then it starts getting sore, of which it does, do you stop? Do you go slower? Do you go faster? That then becomes your decision. What is it that you want to do? But after 4 months of regularly going to the gym, you start to see the difference in you, in your size, in the clothes that you're wearing. Now probably the confidence goes high. Now you start telling everyone about it, but also they get to see it. So they get to ask you about it. So 120 days is trying to make it automatic, to automate it. And now the 300 for this year is just to say, sometimes after we achieve that size, because I was attending Botaki's wedding and I wanted to fit in this particular dress, or perhaps it's my wedding or my graduation, whatever the event, once you get there, then you stop. Then it's no longer a way of life. So the whole idea of transformation is becoming a different person than what you were yesterday. And now it's sustenance. So 300 days takes you to where now it's automatic. When you are not going to the gym, you crave it. When you feel tired in the office, you start to give yourself a reason. It's because I didn't go to the gym. Now, with 120 days challenge, I wanted people to bring in one goal that they have. You see, the reason for 120 or the 4 months is that you get to automate it, what you are doing. An example that I can give you is when you want to lose the weight. First, you go to the gym, it's January, it's full. And now you want to give up because you can't find, your slot into the treadmill. But once you look around, you might find that there are other open spaces and you now keeping to this goal. You may start at 30 minutes a day at the gym, and then you increase it to an hour. But after 120 days, if you haven't changed your food intake, you'll be a nice, bulky, firm person, but you wouldn't have lost the weight, so you can't fit into whatever that you wanted to fit into, right? But once you start making sure that you keep to your food intake, the gym, after 120 days, when you skip gym, you start to miss it. And this is what I actually intended with the 120 days. Now, with the 300 days that we are on, today is our 6th day of doing it. With the 300 days, it's for you to eventually automate it such that the mind gives in and it gets to see that this is what Lerato wants to achieve. And now even your body starts to give in and just give you the body that you want. So we're not going to get to the end of summer and we say, you know what, summer, you're getting the body that I'm giving you and I'm not having a summer body. Whatever that you want to achieve, if you focus on it long enough, it becomes your way of life. It becomes who you are. It becomes your lifestyle.
So, Lerato, what I've taken out of what you said, unpacking the 120 days and the 300 days, is that change is not easy. But at the same time, staying the same is not easy. So you've got to stand up for yourself, inside yourself, so that you can achieve that which you want to achieve at the end of the day. And good luck with the new milestone of 300 days. And we believe that you will impact a lot of people who will be joining you through this program. So, Lerato, in closing, our tagline in Dreams Made Possible podcast is that we share Life 101 conversations for a great life. So, what is that Life 101 lesson, the basics of life that you would share with the viewers out home based on your life journey and what you have learned up to this point?
The lesson would be, don't stop to be curious. And the second point will also be, give yourself permission to do it. The world is not going to give you permission to do it. So if you're curious and if you can dream, because most of us kill our dreams by thinking we're old enough. Sometimes we think we're young enough. And now it doesn't matter when you start. Because I always say to most South Africans that I work with, if God gives you a long life to 100 or even 95, how old are you now? And how many years do you have to that 100 or 95? Now, if you take me, for example, I'm 44. Now, if we say 95, that is a good 51 years. Someone would be born and probably even change careers in the middle of me wasting the time of being who I want to be. So give yourself permission and don't stop to be curious, because life is not always what we make it to be and what we think it is.
Thank you, Lerato, for that. Where do people get hold of you?
Well, I'm available on social media platforms at Lerato Inspires, on TikTok, on Facebook, on Instagram, and on LinkedIn. I'm Lerato Inspires. My website is leratoinspires.com. Email info@leratoinspires.com. So if you are in need of locating your superpower, breaking the walls of the glass ceiling that you have created for yourself, I will be here to hold your hand such that we bash it and you get to be the best version of who you are in 2023 and beyond.
Hi, dreamer at home. That was Lerato Dube, the space scientist that has turned into a transformational speaker and coach. Probably you can hear from her story that it was all about giving herself permission to be where she wanted to be. It is also about the courage that she garnered to make decisions that would have probably made her unpopular. But at the end of the day, it is about the destiny that she wanted to craft for herself. And we believe that you will also take that energy yourself and take the decisions that are going to influence your life so that you can be a better you. Dreams can be possible. Thank you.